So week 2 of season 13 of RuPaul's Drag Race, and there is a lot to digest in this episode. First, we start off back in the pork chop lounge, pork chop loading bay. I don't even know what they're calling it at this point, where our 7 queens that lost their lip syncs last week now have the task of voting one person out based on nothing more than first impressions and a short conversation while sitting in a room together. It just felt so unfair, start to finish, and you know, it's one of those moments where no matter who gets voted out, you're just hoping, oh please, they have to get another chance. So we see the queens all go and vote, and the vote comes out as a tie between Utica and Elliott. The queens have to re-vote, and we see Elliott get voted out. You know, at this point, I was very unhappy because I thought Elliott seemed like someone who kind of gave me the underdog vibe and seemed like there was a lot of potential there. And now potentially we're sitting there with Elliott just gone. But of course, Elliott comes back and joins the group of winners, which immediately made me happy because I always think it's so unfair, like no matter what happens, for someone to go home in the first week. You know, you think like RuPaul's Drag Race, this is, you know, a life maker for some of these queens, and an absolute game changer, and to be on there for, like they said, 15 minutes would have been absolutely devastating. So I was glad to see Elliott come back, and then once Elliott comes back, we get a whole episode of just that top group. So that was very interesting. We opened up with a 2-look mini challenge. We had like a daytime look followed up by a nighttime horror look, and the queens were overall very, very good. For the daytime looks, I thought Elliott, Olivia, and SYmone really stood out to me. Lala Ree looked great. Gottmik, so much better without that mime makeup. I just am not a fan of just the entirely white face paint. I just don't like it. But yeah, a lot of good looks. I thought Candy was a little just meh. And same with Tina. We moved on to the night looks, and for the most part, the results were the same. Gottmik, Lala, Olivia, SYmone, Elliott, I thought those were all the better looks, while Tina and Candy, I felt, were the weaker looks. So that was our mini challenge. You know, still pretty huge for a mini challenge. 2 entire looks and brief runways. And we don't get any sort of critique after that. We just move straight into our main challenge for the week, which was lyrics and choreo to a Ru song. This is just a classic RuPaul's challenge where you take a RuPaul song, you write your own verse, and you're with a group of people who does choreo to it. We really saw this group kind of struggle at the start. No one really wanted to take the lead. No one really wanted that responsibility. And Elliott, the one person who did seem to have a dance background, didn't feel comfortable trying to take the lead just because Elliott was already on the outside of the group, having been eliminated in the previous week, and coming back to rejoin the group put Elliott at a huge disadvantage. We kind of start this choreo. Saw it's not going good, and we kind of head back to the workroom. And I thought it was interesting that we're kind of start hearing these whispers of Elliott the spy. Elliott could be spying on us, and I'm sitting there watching, thinking, what could Elliott be spying for? Like, who is Elliott taking this information back to? So Elliott's going to take the information of her conversations with the rest of the queens back to the pork chop lounge and be like, ooh, Candy was a little shady to me. Tina Burner, I didn't get a good vibe from her. I got what were they thinking? There's no spying going on here. It's just a matter of you were this winners group that just kind of immediately got this air of superiority because you won one lip sync within 5 minutes of showing up to RuPaul's Drag Race. Also thought it was weird that we hear Candy at one point say like, "Hey, I'm always open to giving everybody a chance." And meanwhile, everything out of her mouth at like before and after that was all really disparaging the other queens who lost the first lip sync and kind of attacking Elliott a little bit. So once again, Candy is a queen that definitely rubbing me the wrong way. I didn't like her last week, don't like her this week, and I will keep that opinion until we see something different from Candy. Let's talk about Gottmik for a minute. So Gottmik is transgender, transitioned from female to male, and is now on the show and a drag queen. And we go into the choreo and they start playing Gottmik's lyrics, and one of her lyrics is I was born a woman. And you know, Gottmik kind of froze up when she heard that because she hadn't had the opportunity to discuss that with all of the other queens yet. And we also got an interesting conversation there in the workroom with Olivia and Gottmik about pronouns and how when Gottmik is out of drag, he likes to go by he, and when she's in drag, she likes to go by she, just like everybody else. I also noticed that RuPaul changed one of her lines. Instead of "May the best woman win" to "the best drag queen win," which was just overall just all about inclusivity, and I just think it's a good change, just to kind of tell everybody out there, like, no matter who you are, this could be a world for you to join into. And another interesting workroom conversation was kind of about who everyone viewed as a threat, and primarily two names came up, and that was Gottmik and Tina. And I found that interesting that those were the two that stood out. I kind of figured Tina, because she kind of has this big personality and almost a legend vibe, and then I wasn't expecting Gottmik because I thought Gottmik was more known for the stellar makeup, but obviously a bigger name in the drag world than I had thought. So let's move on to the performance. Overall, I didn't really feel like we had any major standouts or anyone who stood out for negative reasons. Overall, performances were pretty good. There were two small errors, and one was by Candy, who forgot choreo at one point, and the other by Gottmik, who froze up a little bit during the first solo. But besides that, everyone was very good. You know, a few people that kind of stood out: SYmone, Olivia, and Elliott. Really, I think those were just the three best queens tonight. And when we got to the final runway, Olivia and SYmone end up being our top two. So let's move on to that runway. Let's kind of just quickly go over some of the best looks. Gottmik definitely stood out as one of the best on the runway. Absolute showstopper of a dress. SYmone as well, loved the whole boxing vibe. Very, very cool. And for me, those two are probably the best looks. I felt Candy's looked a little subpar. I wasn't a huge fan of Olivia's dress, but the hair and makeup was phenomenal. Olivia absolutely drop dead gorgeous, so she's always going to have that going for her. Overall, the critiques from the judges, very positive. The only two negatives came for Gottmik and Candy for mistakes they made in their performances. But other than that, everyone gets very, very good critiques. which was good to hear because, you know, we got to the end of the episode and I'm kind of sitting there thinking, nobody deserves to go home based off their performances, the looks, and the runway. I was really hoping that the Ru would decide to keep everybody, and was very glad when that was the final decision. So SYmone and Olivia get named as our top two, and they face off to lip sync for $5,000. Olivia kind of went for the laughs and the gags, and I didn't really quite buy it from her. And SYmone went a more serious approach, really went in for the song, and you know, you never know what the judges are going to react to. So far for the lip syncs this season, the laughs have done better than the serious performances, but SYmone pulls off the victory here. I really liked her in this lip sync, and yeah, that's our first winner of the season. Overall from this episode, I really liked Olivia, especially all the behind the scenes things. Anytime we got a little interview cut from her or a conversation in the workroom, I just really enjoyed her personality and attitude, and definitely someone that I will be rooting for moving forward. I didn't give her that great of a review last week. I thought that Olivia and SYmone were interesting, but not really standouts for me. But Olivia definitely a standout after this episode, and someone that I will be rooting for the rest of the season. I think that wraps up our week 2. Next week, we will be going over to our other 6 queens for what looks like a similar week. We at least get a choreo and lyrics performance, and I don't know if they'll have the 2-look challenge as well, but I would suspect so. So that's going to wrap things up for this week. As always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you later.